You probably don't struggle sitting through a long gaming session or scrolling on your phone for hours. You could stay glued to a screen, fully focused, without even realizing how much time has passed. But try studying for 30 minutes. Suddenly it feels impossible. Try working on your side project for an hour, and your brain instantly loses interest. Even though you know that studying, exercising, or building something long-term will benefit your life, you still choose the easy entertainment: TV, games, social media. At first glance, it makes sense. One activity is effortless and instantly rewarding. The other requires work, patience, and energy. But here's the strange part. Some people have no problem working out, studying consistently, or building a business every day. So why are they more driven? And is it possible to make difficult tasks feel easier? To understand that, we need to talk about a certain chemical in the brain: dopamine. People often call dopamine the pleasure molecule, but that's not really accurate. Dopamine isn't pleasure, it's desire. It's the spark that pushes you to take action. To show how powerful dopamine is, neuroscientists ran a few intense experiments on rats. They implanted electrodes into the rats' brains. Every time a rat pressed a lever, their reward center was stimulated, pressing the lever non-stop for hours. The result? The rats became obsessed. They stopped eating, stopped sleeping, and kept hitting the lever until they collapsed from exhaustion. Then the scientists tried the opposite. They blocked dopamine in the reward center entirely. Suddenly, the rats became so unmotivated, they wouldn't even stand up to drink water. They wouldn't eat. They wouldn't mate. They lost all drive. But if food was placed directly into their mouths, they still enjoyed it. They just had no motivation to go get it. Most people think hunger or thirst motivates us to get food, but dopamine is equally responsible. Those rat experiments are extreme, but the same principles apply to us. Your brain prioritizes things based on how much dopamine it expects to receive. Low dopamine equals low motivation. High dopamine equals strong motivation. So what gives a dopamine release? Any activity where you expect a reward. Eating comfort food, checking your phone, scrolling on social media, playing games, watching porn. Your brain doesn't even care if the reward is bad for you. It just wants more dopamine. This is why drugs like heroin and cocaine are extremely addictive. They release huge, unnatural amounts of dopamine, making the brain crave them intensely. But here's the important part. Almost everything gives some dopamine, even drinking water. But the highest dopamine spikes come from random rewards, like gambling. You keep playing because you expect a reward, but you don't know when it will come. And today, we live in a world that constantly bombards us with high dopamine stimuli. Social media, notifications, games, online content. We check our phones constantly, waiting for that little hit of excitement, just like rats pressing the lever. And you might think, so what? It's not hurting me. But actually, it is. Your body has a system called homeostasis. It always tries to stay balanced. If something throws your body out of balance, it adjusts. When you're cold, you shiver to warm up. When you're hot, you sweat to cool down. And homeostasis also works with tolerance. A person who rarely drinks gets drunk quickly. A regular drinker needs more alcohol to feel the same effect. Their body becomes less sensitive. The exact same thing happens with dopamine. Flood your brain with high dopamine every day, and your receptors become less responsive. High dopamine becomes your new normal. This creates a major problem. Low dopamine activities, studying, reading, working, suddenly feel boring, painful, or meaningless. This is why video games and scrolling feel fun, and studying feels like torture. This is also why drug addicts struggle to enjoy normal life. Their dopamine tolerance is so high that everyday activities feel empty. And it doesn't just happen with drugs. It happens with social media addiction, video game addiction, porn addiction, anything with too much dopamine. So what can we do? We need something called a dopamine detox. You might already guess what that means. Set aside a day where you avoid highly stimulating activities. Stop flooding your brain with constant dopamine. Let your receptors reset. Important note: if you struggle with serious drug addiction, seek professional help. Detoxing alone could be dangerous. For everyone else, here's the process. For one entire day, remove as much stimulation as possible. No internet, no phone, no computer, no music, no junk food, no masturbation, no entertainment. You embrace boredom, a lot of boredom. What are you allowed to do? Walk, meditate, sit with your thoughts, reflect on your goals, write ideas down on paper, not on a phone. It sounds extreme, but if you want fast results, you need strong action. Why does it work? Imagine eating at the best restaurant every day. Your taste standards rise. A simple bowl of rice feels tasteless. But if you're starving on an island, that same bowl of rice suddenly feels amazing. A dopamine detox does the same thing. It starves your brain of overstimulation, so simple activities feel rewarding again. In other words, you get so bored that boring things become interesting. If a full detox day feels too extreme, Try a smaller one. Choose one high dopamine behavior. 1 day per week, avoid it completely. No games, no scrolling, no junk food, no porn. Your brain will feel bored, and that boredom will push you to do things you normally avoid. And ideally, you don't just avoid high dopamine activities occasionally, you reduce them in general. But here's the real secret. You can use high dopamine activities as rewards for completing hard work. This is what I do. I track my low dopamine tasks: cleaning, reading, exercise, learning, creating videos. When I finish enough difficult work, I reward myself with a bit of high dopamine fun at the end of the day. Keywords: after and at the end of the day. If I indulge first, I'll never feel like doing the hard tasks after. My ratio is simple. 1 hour of productive work equals 15 minutes of high dopamine entertainment. 8 hours of work equals about 2 hours of fun. You can adjust your own ratios. If your addiction is something harmful, don't use it as a reward. Pick something healthier. My personal weakness is the internet. I can disappear into it for hours. That's why I stick to this system. It keeps me in control. But even with a system, I still plan full detox days without any high dopamine activities. Here's the big truth. You can make hard things feel easier, but not if your brain is constantly overloaded with dopamine. Limit phone use, limit screen time, limit addictive behaviors. It's absolutely worth it. If you struggle with motivation, start detoxing your dopamine as soon as possible. Reduce your exposure to unnatural dopamine spikes. Eventually, normal, everyday tasks will feel exciting again, and you'll be able to stick with them longer. We're all dopamine driven. And that's okay. Dopamine pushes us to improve. But you have to choose where your dopamine comes from: useless distractions or your long-term goals. The decision is yours.